This is Planet Money from NPR.
Welcome back, everybody, to Planet Money Summer School World Tour, the only international economics degree you can get while driving on the wrong side of the road. Or is it the right side? I'm Robert Smith. Every Wednesday until Labor Day, we are living out of a suitcase and jetting to the 7 continents of this earth. In each country, we'll hear stories of how other people have tackled some of the same economic problems we face here at home. And we'll collect solutions that we might not have considered. It's like a cheap souvenir that can improve everyone's life instead of just gathering dust on your bookshelf. Today, we visit Europe and tour one of the countries that is actually richer per person than the United States of America. Norway has won the economic lottery, and it's managed those riches better than just about any country on earth. Every class on summer school has a local expert to guide us around. And today in Norway, we have Hilda Bjornlund, a professor of economics at the Norwegian Business School. Hey, Professor.
Hi, Robert. You can call me Hilda.
Okay, Hilda. Norway and really all of Scandinavia, when you think about it, are often held up as this model of how a wealthy society can create this wonderful quality of life. I know it looks idyllic from the outside, but there must be some challenges in your economy that we don't normally talk about.
There's a lot for us to learn from other countries. So one thing is that there's a lot to strive for in terms of, if I should be a little bit more critical, in the sense of entrepreneurship, productivity, and these days technology and AI, we are not the leaders there. So in that sense, we are safe and sound with a lot of richness and social welfare, but maybe we are not the leaders in inventing things at the moment.
Well, it is notable that Norway is only one of a handful of countries in the entire world that has a wealth tax. Most countries tax income, but Norway actually taxes your investments and your houses and your assets that you own every single year. Does this maybe slow down the competitive spirit to start an internet or an AI company?
I think it's part of the problem. And I think for sure most economists in Norway think it is preventing the kind of investment we would like to have. So it has been suggested to reduce it, and it's being discussed at the moment. But for now, it's clearly not working in the favor of new investment.
Well, I could tell you as a country that has both new investment and a brand new trillionaire, there is more discussion here about perhaps having a wealth tax.
Yeah. So, but there's other taxes you can also impose, like inheritance tax and house tax separately, and you can also do higher income tax. But we have had most of them, so that makes for a less incentive, it said.
There is also, as we will see today in one of our case studies, the subject of the oil. Norway is one of the top oil producers in the world, the biggest in Europe. And that's led to these riches that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. So the money has been amazing for Norway, but is it possible to be too rich, to have too much money?
I'm not sure whether we have too much, but if you have a lot, the politician might not necessarily prioritize the right thing. There will be a lot of pressure on them to spend it on a lot of things. To build roads to small islands without thinking on that you have to maintenance all those roads in the future, which might not necessarily make the Norwegian economy more productive and more sustainable in the future.
So how does a country stay productive and sustainable after the discovery of oil and massive riches that pour into the economy? We will tackle that question with Hilda and tell you a parable about the economic value of restraint. When it comes to governments, or frankly our own lives, the key to long-term wealth is to resist the short-term urges. After the break.
Support comes from our 2026 lead sponsor of Planet Money, Amazon Business. Don't let complicated purchasing processes get in the way. Smart business buying tools from Amazon Business help you make better decisions faster. Their AI-driven features surface insights to simplify procurement, automate routine tasks, and help you find what you need when you need it. Now, organizations of any size can access unmatched selection, business-relevant features, and fast, reliable delivery. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com. This message comes from NPR sponsor Carvana. Carvana makes car buying easy. 100% online, prices down to the penny, delivered to your door. Why make car buying hard when it could be easy? Visit Carvana.com today. Terms may apply.
Welcome back, class. Eyes up, pencils ready. Because our first case study is a classic one in international economics with a new twist. When a country discovers a valuable resource like oil, they pop the champagne bottles, they buy new Cadillacs, and then they watch in horror as their economy gets worse. The oil corrupts officials, distorts the real economic activity like manufacturing and agriculture. It's called the resource curse, and we've covered it before on Planet Money. But Norway found a secret talisman to break the back of the resource curse. Professor Hilde, remind us of the definition.
Okay, so a resource curse is a strange fact that a country who finds, say, oil or gas or any natural resource, it ends up being poorer after it has extracted the resource than it was before. So it's a curse, actually, to find the resource rather than a blessing.
It's amazing. It's like winning the lottery can make you poorer.
Yes, exactly. It's like a paradox of plenty, we call it.
The paradox of plenty. Oh, I love it. So, how did Norway succeed in becoming a rich and successful oil-producing country where so many others have failed? Our first case study is from 2011. It was hosted by the great David Kestenbaum and Alex Bloomberg.
The story of how Norway avoided the oil curse is a fascinating tale focused on one guy, one unusual man who was instrumental in helping Norway get it right, where so many countries get it wrong.
My name is Farouk Al-Qasim.
Farouk Al-Qasim is Iraqi, and for over a decade, he worked in Iraq for an oil company. He was trained as a geologist.
Farouk's wife was Norwegian, and in the 1960s, they decided to move to Norway. Their son had cerebral palsy and needed medical care. Job-wise, Norway seemed at the time like the worst place in the world for an oil guy.
You see, the Norwegian Geological Survey had already said that there is no hope in heaven of ever finding oil or gas.
So Farouk figured if he was going to get an oil job, it would come with a very long commute.
If I am lucky, I could get a job in Europe somewhere, or even in North Africa or the Middle East, and then I could commute to Norway. If the worst comes to the worst, I may be able to drive a taxi in Norway. That's what I was thinking.
So Farouk flew to Norway. He had to catch a train, but he had 6 hours to kill before the train left. And those 6 hours turned out to be very fateful for Farouk and for Norway. Instead of waiting around in the train station, Farouk decided, I'll spend my time productively.
I looked into the telephone directory and decided that the Ministry of Industry is the ministry to deal with oil, if there were oil at all in the country. So I went there and...
So you just took a cab from...
Not even a cab, I walked. Oslo is not all that big.
Farouk knew that there were some companies looking for oil in Norway, despite what the Norwegian Geological Service had said. And he was hoping to get a list from the ministry of these companies. He assumed they'd just write some names down on a piece of paper and send them back to the train station. But instead, they sit him down and they start asking him all these questions.
I thought it was just social curiosity.
But what Farouk didn't know at the time, Norway isn't just an overly friendly society. It turns out that group of people in that office had been waiting for a guy like him to walk in the door for a while. See, even though Norway's geologists had said there wasn't oil, there were still oil companies exploring. And these oil companies were sending the results of their exploration to the government. Now, Norway is a small country, and there aren't a lot of people who can make sense of that data the oil companies were sending.
And so then this Iraqi guy walks in and says, I'm here. Is anyone still looking for oil? So what do? They hired him. And his first job they gave him was they asked him to look over the geological results from the oil companies that had been doing test drillings. The terrain in Norway could not be more different, right? Farouk has gone from the deserts of Iraq to almost the Arctic Circle. The oceans are violent and freezing cold, but, geology is geology. And to him, looking at the drilling reports, they look surprisingly promising. The oil companies had found oil. Not a lot, but there was definitely something there under the ocean floor.
Remember, the country was saying, there is no way there is oil out there.
Uh-huh.
And here I am, looking at data that says, my God, they have already found it 4 times over, admittedly in not yet commercial size. And by the way, most oil companies, when they go to a new area, they are not really interested in what I call the foxes and the rabbits and the mice. They are interested in elephants.
Right. So they had a couple of foxes and mice that was in the data, but it wasn't clear there was an elephant there.
They were looking for elephants. But if you are a good geologist, you should appreciate very quickly that it's too early. The elephants will be there. It's just a question of giving them a little bit of time to learn how to find elephants. And they will be shooting not only 1, but maybe 20 elephants.
So Farouk's job is to take all this data and write a report. And what he says in this report is 2 things, basically. 1, I know your official geological survey said there's no oil. Turns out that's not true. And 2, in fact, there's probably a lot. And you, Norway, have to get ready so you don't suffer from the oil curse.
Norway has no time to waste preparing themselves for the oil era. And of course, they looked at the report and they said, oh, do you really say that? Oh, my God. We'll just have to wait and see. All the warnings, I was a little bit desperate in trying to find, well, how do I go about persuading them that they really must start preparing themselves?
Farouk's job of persuading them got a lot easier pretty quickly because shortly after he wrote that report, in 1969, people discovered the elephant, the Ekofisk oil field, a massive reservoir which even today, just this one field produces almost 300,000 barrels of oil a day.
So clearly, Norway had a situation. They had a lot of oil, and they had this guy from Iraq saying, you have to be very, very careful how you handle it.
So let's just pause here and lay out why finding what is essentially a pot of gold is considered by economists to be a curse. The first reason is just that it corrupts. It's human nature. When something very valuable is discovered, fights tend to break out over it. A lot of times you get dictators who keep all the money for themselves and use it to keep themselves in power.
But there is a second problem with discovering massive amounts of oil, and it's less human nature, more mathematics. It's sometimes called Dutch disease, after what happened in the Netherlands when they found a bunch of natural gas. And it goes like this. All of a sudden, you have this commodity which the whole world wants to buy from you. Money floods into your economy, which makes your currency more valuable. After all, if someone wants to buy oil from Norway, they have to pay for it in the Norwegian currency, the krona. Before Ekofisk, not much of the world cared about having a lot of Norwegian krona. But now, everyone wants it.
And as we've talked about before on this podcast, when your currency gets more valuable, that's actually a tough thing for a lot of local industries. I mean, take, for example, the Norwegian fishing industry, right? All of a sudden now, Norway's cod is going to be way more expensive than cod from other countries that haven't discovered oil. And so when you discover oil, what can happen is that other sectors of your economy shrink or even die.
And that was the fate that awaited Norway. Corruption, collapsing industries, a possible descent into tyranny. So they asked Farouk, what do you think we should do? And he and a colleague sat down to write their recommendations for how Norway should deal with its extremely dangerous newfound wealth.
They had 1 week to do it. Farouk and his colleague needed a quiet place to think, so they set up for a cabin in the woods that his colleague had.
We have food, we have beds, we have everything, fishing rods, and we could work as hard as we like, and then when we are tired, we could relax. And actually, we, instead of using the whole week, we did it in 4.5 days.
It was a first draft of a white paper that got passed up to various officials in the Norwegian government, reviewed, and eventually incorporated into a finance ministry plan that ended up saving Norway from the resource curse.
Now, Farouk wants to make it clear he was one of many people that contributed to this plan, but what emerged was pretty great. The plan set up a powerful independent regulator that made sure all the companies in Norway played by the same rules, that there weren't any sweetheart deals, that they paid their fair share in taxes to the Norwegian government.
But that still left the Dutch disease problem. Selling all that oil would flood the country with money and drive up the value of the currency. So the solution? Let's not make so much money. Let's not drill everything at once.
So what they advocated that we should be very restrictive in how many license blocks we allocate per year. And as a result of that, throughout the 70s, no more than 3-4 blocks were allocated every year.
That shows amazing self-restraint. We have all this oil in the ground, but we're only going to tap a bit every year.
It is a fantastic self-restraint. The whole nation didn't even question this. Now, when this white paper of 1974 came out, it was received with skepticism by the industry, who wanted Norway to go full speed ahead. But at the end of the day, when the debate settled, the opinion of the politicians was very clear. We should go slowly.
So, Dave, let's just pause here to marvel at what the Norwegians did here. They essentially had this gigantic pile of money buried beneath the ground, and they said, you know what? We're not going to dig it all up at once. In fact, we're going to dig it up really, really slowly, just a little bit a year for decades. They reinvested almost all the money back into developing the oil industry, into drilling new wells, doing new explorations, developing new technologies. Remember, Norway's oil was really hard to get. It's far beneath the ocean floor in cold, stormy seas with these crazy cross currents. The technology to get it out of the ground barely existed at the time the discovery was made. So there was a lot of R&D to invest in to actually get it.
And even later, in the 1990s, when a lot of those problems had been solved, the government still did not spend the money it got from oil, and instead put it into a fund.
We learned of this story from an article Martin Sandbu wrote. He's an editorial writer at the Financial Times. He's from Norway.
It's been saved in an oil fund, a savings fund, and the government only gets the interest on the financial wealth that's in that fund.
Your country basically has a huge trust fund, a huge endowment.
A huge trust fund. The trust fund is, I haven't checked the latest numbers, but it's on the order of $500 billion now, which amounts to $100,000 per Norwegian citizen.
It's pretty nice.
It's quite nice.
Our case study on the oil curse first aired in 2011. A lot of oil has flowed from the North Sea since then. Professor Hilde Bjørnlend, let's update the numbers in that story. There is more money in the oil fund now, I would imagine?
Oh, yes, for sure.
How much money does Norway have?
Okay, so I actually had to check the numbers, and these days the fund now is $2.3 trillion.
$2.3 trillion?
Trillion. So there's a lot of zeros after the 2 point there. And if you take those $2.3 trillion and divide it by 5.5 million Norwegians, you get $400,000 for every Norwegian.
Why go to work today, Hilda? Why should anyone do anything in Norway except spend that money?
Yeah, that's a good point. But the reason being that we can't spend it all now because we are saving for the future. We are still saving for the future, but we are spending a big chunk of that every year still.
Well, the case study was all about the money, but there is something else that Norway got out of this whole process, and that is expertise. There are now Norwegian drilling engineers, Norwegian drilling companies, Norwegian subsea robots, a whole Norwegian high-tech petroleum industry that you didn't have before.
So this is super important, and that's often something which isn't part of the story. If you think of a typically oil-producing countries, think of a small open economy with no knowledge like we had in the 70s, and US comes in with these big companies. They drill and they have all the expertise, and the proceeds go to the government who spends it widely. Then you're bound to get some resource curse. But what we did was that we taxed these oil companies. We decided to tax them a lot, 78% for drilling in the North Sea. And that, together with the know-how and the spillovers and the engineers and the technical competence, made us not just producers, but it made us capable of having industries which then again could come and export and to drill and to extract and invent in other countries.
So this all seems like a good pitch to do things Norway style, or I guess we should say Farouk style. But I do wonder if listening to this case study would actually help a country if they discovered oil. It seems like you have to have a lot of political and economic things in place before the oil starts pumping. So Norway was already a democracy when it discovered oil, which was also true of Canada and the US, who avoided the curse. You have to have a good financial tax system in place. And economists talk about the high level of social trust in places like Norway. What does that look like in the country?
So first of all, I think most Norwegians trust the government, the parliament, the lawyers, the high court.
Let me write that down. You trust the lawyers. This is a new concept for me.
Well, let me say I trust high court, and in a sense, I don't trust all the lawyers.
Okay.
So like at the time, I think people trusted the government for making the best decision for the Norwegian economy. That doesn't mean that you have to agree on all decisions which are made. There's a lively debate in Norway these days about spending too much public money relative to using the money on, say, reducing taxes. It's a political decision. Should we reduce taxes and then maybe spend less on the social welfare system? That's a debate.
You know, I've always wanted to ask a Norwegian this. Your riches come from oil, but most of the cars sold in your country are electric cars. I read something like that 96%, could this be true? 96% of new car registrations are electric cars?
Absolutely true.
From an oil superpower? Do you have an electric car?
Yes, I do now. And I love it. So it's fantastic. But the thing is, here they gave a huge tax incentive. So this is maybe a tax incentive which worked in the beginning, but then the price of electrical car went down. So then it became quite an excessive subsidies towards electrical cars.
I love it. Electric car subsidies that come from oil. That is definitely one way to do it. We will return with the professor after the break and another clever Norwegian lesson. How to turn something you're about to throw away into profit. All it takes is a cartoon Viking, a boatload of salmon sushi, and the willingness to break a cultural taboo. After the break.
Support comes from our 2026 lead sponsor of Planet Money, Amazon Business. Procurement shouldn't be a guessing game. Whether you're running a small business or managing a large organization, Amazon Business offers smart purchasing experiences designed to meet your unique needs. Streamline your buying process, save time and money, and gain valuable insights to make smarter decisions. Empower your team to buy with confidence. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Data IQ. AI agents are transforming how enterprises work. The problem is many operate in secret. The right people rarely know what their agents are doing, if they're doing it right, or that they even exist at all. Data IQ gives companies one place to see, control, and measure every agent across the entire business. Visit dataiq.com/NPR. That's dataiku.com/NPR.
We are back enjoying the bounties of Norway, sweet, sweet crude oil, and now delicious salmon. Both are Norwegian, both abundant, but there was too much demand for the oil, as we saw in the last story, and not enough demand for the salmon, which is the topic of our next case study. Kind of a sushi curse, if you will. Professor Hilda Bjornland, I take it everyone eats salmon in Norway?
Oh, yes, all the time. Raw and cooked and fried and barbecued.
And anything else you could think of. Okay, before we hear this case study about salmon, what should the students keep in mind as they listen to it?
So the students should think about what are the barriers to trade, what could prevent industries for entering into trade with another country. And I think also they should think about the market alone is not always enough.
Interesting. People should pay attention to what the government does in this story and how it does what the market can't do. This case study came from 2015. Our hosts are Jess Jang and Jacob Goldstein, and the story starts in Manhattan.
I've been going to sushi bars since I was a little kid, but in all that time, I have never been on the other side of the sushi bar. I've never been back where the chef stands.
Last week, we made it back there, thanks to Chef Shimao Ishikawa at the sushi restaurant Jewel Bako in Manhattan.
What's the most popular fish you sell?
Popular fish?
Yeah.
Tuna is popular, yeah.
Tuna. They've got lots of tuna.
Yeah.
And then the second most popular?
Second is now the salmon.
The salmon.
Yeah.
It's the second most popular.
Yeah.
He's been a sushi chef for 40 years or so. And, as you'd expect, he has served and eaten basically everything. Sea urchin, of course he's eaten sea urchin.
Poisonous blowfish?
Sure, he's got a special license in Japan to prepare poisonous blowfish.
But in all his years as a sushi chef, he's never, ever had a single bite of raw salmon.
I'm not eat salmon. No.
Wait, never?
Yeah, I never eat salmon,
So you've never even taken one bite of raw salmon?
No.
Can we get you to try it today?
Tomorrow. Mañana.
Not that long ago, everybody in Japan was like Ishikawa. Nobody ate raw salmon. It was like eating raw pork or something. It just wasn't done. When we talk about international trade, we often tend to talk about things like tariffs and quotas. And there's this idea that if you get rid of those things, get rid of those barriers, then new products just come rushing in across borders. But clearly, that is not always the case. I mean, sometimes you have to spend years and years and years working and begging and trying to convince an entire country that whatever thing you have a lot of, whatever thing you want to sell, is something they should want to buy. Like, take, for example, salmon in Norway. Hello?
Hello, can you hear us? The other day, we were trying to connect to this studio in Tromsø, on this little island in northern Norway, and we overheard them talking about us in Norwegian.
For et publikum, sant, mot økonomi og sånt i marked.
Money planet.
Ja.
Hello?
Hello.
Does Planet Money translate as Mooney Planet? Is that right?
Yes.
This is Bjorn Eirik Olsen. And when we talked to him the other day, he told us that back around the time he graduated from college, this was a few decades ago, Norway had a problem. The government had been subsidizing the Norwegian fishing industry for decades. And basically, they'd been paying people to fish. And, of course, when you subsidize something, you get more of it.
It's not a very clever way of using money, because the more you use, the worse the situation gets.
The government says, okay, let's wind down these subsidies, but we're not going to screw over our fishing industry. Let's figure out a way to get the rest of the world to buy our fish.
They look around the world and they see one country in particular that really loves fish and that needs to start importing more fish. Yes, Japan.
At the time, salmon sushi is not a thing. Not in Japan, not in Norway. Sure, it's cured or smoked, but a hunk of raw salmon? No.
And in fact, the idea of salmon sushi just began as this tiny little thing at the Norwegian embassy in Tokyo. They were just playing around with ways to serve Norwegian products in a Japanese style.
They just tried, let's try to have a little bit salmon raw. Just in the embassy tried that. And the chef and the ambassador said, oh, this tastes quite nice.
Around this time, Bjorn gets hired by the Norwegian government to sell fish to the Japanese. He used to be a fisherman. He speaks Japanese. He's kind of the perfect guy for this mission.
And he figures, yeah, sure, we could sell salmon cheap in Japan. People in Japan already eat salmon grilled. But when people buy fish to use for sushi, they're willing to pay a lot more for it. Sometimes people pay 5 times as much for the same kind of fish if it's going to be used for sushi. So if he can get people in Japan to eat salmon sushi, it'll make all that Norwegian salmon much more valuable.
So Bjorn goes to Tokyo, and he gets a bunch of Japanese fish industry executives into a conference room. And he unveils the next big thing, salmon sushi.
And they say directly over the table, it's impossible. We Japanese do not eat salmon raw. And we say, well, yes, but it's good. It tastes good. Now they say, it doesn't taste good. They say the color is wrong also. It's too light red. It should be redder. And they say that it has a smell. And also, of course, they knew the shape of the salmon, and they said that the head has the wrong shape, and the gills look wrong. Everything is wrong. So everything was wrong. Everything, the taste, the smell, the texture, the fat, the color, everything.
Bjorn's big challenge was this. He was going to have to change the perception of an entire country of people. People who thought the color or the shape of the head of salmon was all wrong.
And if you want to change perception, if you want to get people to buy something, what you do is not a mystery. You launch an ad campaign. And so Bjorn and his colleagues figured, all right, we'll start doing some TV commercials.
Maybe have a cute cartoon character.
Did you have a mascot, like a dancing salmon or something?
We had, but it was very silly. It was a Viking.
A Viking?
Yes. It was a Viking with a helmet, and it was like a funny drawing with a big head, and it said Norwegian seafood.
He actually sent us a picture of the Viking, of the mascot. And I have to say, it's like if you were to imagine what some outsider trying to pander to a Japanese audience would come up with, it's kind of that, right? Like it's this super cute little boy Viking with this great big head and like big eyes.
And a huge giant fork.
Yeah, like as tall as he is. And so the Viking, surprise, didn't work.
People in Japan were used to eating this kind of salmon that tended to have parasites in it and would make you sick if you ate it raw. Bjorn says the salmon from Norway was totally different. Parasites just weren't a problem.
But it's not like Bjorn could just run an ad in Japan that said, don't worry, our salmon is parasite-free.
We concentrated our information to the consumers about the cold, pure Norwegian seawater, and of course putting the pictures of fjords, mountains, ice. Then you gave the impression about something that is pure and fresh.
Pure and fresh, not enough to get Japan to start eating raw salmon.
And back in Norway, the Norwegian salmon industry was getting desperate. The glut was getting so bad that they start filling industrial-sized freezers with tons and tons of salmon.
So Bjorn is trying to find somebody in Japan to buy into his dream of Japanese people eating raw salmon. And there was this one company called Nishi-Rei that he had been building a relationship with for years. Everybody in Japan knows this company. They're like Kraft or Stouffer's or something in this country. They sell frozen food, dumplings, chicken nuggets, squid.
Bjorn told them, I will sell you 5,000 tons of that frozen salmon for really cheap. All you have to do is sell it in the grocery stores as sushi. Just try it.
Nishi-Rei said yes. Bjorn had a deal.
It was a day of happiness. I remember that. And it was like, being in the heaven, if you see what I mean. Just the happiness, that we shared.
Once Nishi-Rei starts selling salmon for sushi, the idea of salmon sushi just seems more normal somehow.
It would be like if in this country, say, Dannon started selling yogurt with raw pork at the bottom.
Oh, God.
Look, think about it this way. Like, I'd look at it and think, okay, definitely not something I would have come up with, but I've been eating Dannon yogurt all my life. Never made me sick or anything. So, whatever. Maybe I'll just throw one pork at the bottom in, along with my strawberry banana, my shopping cart.
Pretty soon, salmon sushi starts showing up everywhere in Japan, especially in those conveyor belt sushi restaurants, those kind of mid-tier Applebee's of Japan.
Almost everybody is trying raw salmon. Tadashi Ono is a sushi chef. He's 53 now. The first time he tasted salmon sushi, it was about 20 years ago, and it did not go well.
I was scared. Yeah, so I couldn't really enjoy it. I wasn't really clear about how it tastes. I was more thinking about, oh my God, am I gonna get sick or what? But, second time maybe, third time, okay, So, I started liking it. It's actually, buttery, it's creamy, melt in your mouth.
It's creamy and it melts in your mouth, is that?
Yeah, it is, in a way.
That story was from 2015, hosted by Jacob Goldstein and Jess Jang. A small update to the story. In a recent survey of Japanese consumers, 59% preferred to eat their salmon raw while dining out. That data is from the Norwegian Seafood Council. Keep on selling, my friends. After the break, our professor returns with advice for countries that don't necessarily have oil or oily fish. The real Norwegian lesson is how to solve a coordination problem and sell an image. Coming up.
Support comes from our 2026 lead sponsor of Planet Money, Amazon Business. Streamlining workflows is key to keeping any organization running smoothly. That's why smart leaders turn to AI-powered procurement. With smart business buying, you can simplify workflows, automate repetitive tasks, and keep your team aligned. Equip your organization with intelligent tools, unmatched selection, and fast, reliable delivery so you can focus on what matters most, Learn how to transform purchasing at amazonbusiness.com.
And we are back from the break, and here with some final lessons from Norway and the salmon solution. Hilde Bjørnland is our professor. Hey, Professor.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for having me here.
What I found interesting with this story is that one company could not have done this alone. It required all the companies and the government together to market not just one company's salmon, but Norwegian salmon as a whole brand. So why was that important?
I think it was important for two reasons. One reason was, of course, that together they were stronger and there was no incentives to free ride.
Why don't you define free rider for us? That's a good economic term.
Okay, so free rider is, so let's say I'm a company and I do all the hard work and I sell for a lower price and I invest and I go there and I advertise and I use a lot of resource on this. Then eventually I manage to convince Japanese people to eat raw salmon. Then all the other companies in Norway, salmon companies, who haven't been putting money and resources into this, suddenly have a free access to the same market because I have opened the door for them. So free riding would be that they would sail on my success in a way.
This is a kind of coordination problem that requires a government to come in.
Exactly, a coordination problem, exactly. And the government here opened the doors for them. We couldn't just advertise one company. We needed to advertise the Norwegian salmon as a brand. And for that, they needed to come together.
Well, I would argue it was more than just Norwegian salmon. They were selling Norway. And we've seen this with countries around the world, right? This sort of soft power that people talk about. South Korea sells its entire culture as a sort of cutting-edge, cool thing, and that benefits all their companies. France has sold their high gourmet standards. This was an opportunity for Norway to develop a brand, really, that you are pure nature, quality. I don't know if that existed beforehand.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We heard about the Viking, trying to brand it through the Viking, and we see the Viking today in the world champion in the football. This is really the brand Norway we were selling. Maybe we will have more tourists coming to Norway from this.
Maybe you could sell those plastic hats with the horns on them. I know they're very popular.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants those.
They're probably made in China anyway.
They are made in China, for sure.
Hilde, one thing we are asking of every professor this season from countries around the world is if there's one thing we could take, one lesson we could take from Norwegian economics to implement here in the United States, what should we do? And you cannot answer, get lucky and find more oil.
It's not about the luck, but it's what you do with the luck. So we were lucky, of course, who found oil. But that's not the real reason we are lucky. We are lucky because we managed the wealth in a good way. I think the winners, the big winners in Norway from finding this oil is like the people, everybody. Because we have a society where the income distribution is compressed, we say, that it's not a big difference between the people. And I think that's partly to do with the fact that we found this huge wealth and we have redistributed it. So we have, everybody are winners in a way. It can be improved on, but I think that's a lesson for the US, to think in those directions.
We do have a lot of work to do. Hilde, before you leave, I wanted to remind students of two of the big concepts we covered in this class. There is an online test at the end of the summer everyone should prepare, and you don't want to flub the questions on the resource curse, also known as the oil curse or the Dutch disease.
So resource curse, it's the fact when a country who is lucky and find oil or gas or any resource, it ends up poorer than before it found it. That's the resource curse.
Of course, we went over ways to prepare for the resource curse. One big one is to develop social trust. I'll do the definition. It is the belief that other members of a society are basically honest, fair, and reliable. Yes, even the lawyers. Please don't write us. And Hilde, you mentioned the term free rider. I'm going to use it in a sentence. I am free riding on your brilliance in this interview.
Well, I'm free riding on this discussion. I'm enjoying it.
All right. Free riders all around. Our professor today is Hilde Bjørnland from the BI Norwegian Business School. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Robert.
If you'd like to know more about clever ways to profit from an oversupply, the new Planet Money book has a great chapter on raisins, page 32. They're just worthless dehydrated grapes, hate to break the news to you, until you figure out how to brand them. That's Planet Money, a guide to the economic forces that shape your life. We're starting to get your emails about clever economic tricks from around the world. How about this one? In Taiwan, every receipt for a commercial transaction is also a lottery ticket. Every couple of months, the government gives away money to people with lucky receipts. It keeps businesses from selling things under the table and avoiding sales tax. Very, very good. Send your ideas you've seen around the world to Planet Money at npr.org. Put summer school in the subject. We'll celebrate the best ones in our graduation episode at the end of this series. Summer School is produced by Sophia Palisa-Carr and edited by Alex Goldmark. It is fact-checked by Sierra Juarez. This show is engineered by Sina Lafredo with help from Anli Huang and Robert Rodriguez. I'm Robert Smith. When I'm not summer schooling, I am talking about business history on the new podcast Business History, which is a show about the history of business. This is NPR. Thanks for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, a reminder, no running in the terminal. Don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to get to your Planet Money flight to the Caribbean. We'll be heading over there to ask a radical question. Does property have to be private? Take off as usual next Wednesday.
This message comes from IXL. IXL's Level Up Diagnostic gives immediate benchmark results along with personalized action plans that link directly to IXL's skill practice. More at IXL.com/NPR. This message comes from Instacart. Instacart knows not all bananas are created equal. Some want them green, some ripe, some want them ready right now. With Instacart's Preference Picker, available at most retailers, you can choose preferences like avocado ripeness or deli thickness before your shopper starts. So instead of hoping for the best, you get groceries picked the way you would pick them. Download the app and get bananas just how you like with Instacart.
AI is everywhere, and so is the hype, fear, and jargon around it. I'm Jess Love, host of the new podcast Life Automated, thoughtful conversations about AI that go deep without getting too technical. You shouldn't need to be an AI person to make sense of the future we're building. Life Automated is from Kellogg's Ryan Institute on Complexity and distributed by KQED, part of the NPR network.